I'm surprised because I did see from quite far this shrub. I did think it was maybe a ficus because it looks really like the ficus we can see in Asia, but actually it's not at all a ficus, it is actually a member of the Rubiaceae. And this is the stipules and also the fruit which is typical of Rubiaceae. And it's a really rheophytic plant with long leaves, narrow leaves, so it is perfectly adapted to very fast floods which occur regularly after heavy rains. So it's very rich. We see also the Hypericum growing here, a small Cuphea, also quite a strange climbing member of Asteraceae. Leaves look like opposite, like Clematis, but it's not at all a Clematis. It is Asteraceae climbing, maybe a Senecio or something quite close. And here a small Cuphea. It's a perfect habitat for many Cuphea species. This one is a very small one with typical purple flowers. I think that this shrub with very special shaped leaves just clasping around the stem. I think it's a member of Melastomataceae, but very different from the usual Melastomataceae with the typical venation with Acrodromus vines. I think it's a Muriri, so it's another group of Melastomataceae, totally different, and it's also a rheophytic species. In the forest of Belize, and we see many interesting plants along this river. It's a pine, mostly a pine forest. It was mostly destroyed about 18 years ago due to a beetle, and actually the fire is good because the fire destroys the beetles and also allows the germination of many seeds of this pine forest. So most of the trees now are very young, but actually it's not so bad because due to the increase of light to the soil, many plants growing usually on cliffs are growing here, and we see many Hypericum everywhere. So it's a very special environment, and we'll see some different kinds of forest afterwards. What is this? I think member of Cucurbitaceae, not Passiflora, but I think Cucurbitaceae. It's not so far as families. I think it's very, very strange. Another stage of this plant, I don't really understand, but when I see the structures under the developing fruit, it looks also really like a Passiflora. So difficult to know if it's Passiflora or a Cucurbitaceae, but I want to try to open this because from where is coming the red fruit? I think this is empty. Ah yes, no, it's not empty. It's, oh yes, we see all the ovules on each side of the placenta, 3 placenta. Okay, so I cannot understand how it can be connected to the red.
It's not the same, I think.
Leaves are exactly the same. Ooh, what does it mean? What does it mean? Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire cette histoire? So now I try to open this bright red structure. No, voila, this is typical of Passiflora. So maybe, yes, it's the same. It begins as a green structure with ovules, and here we see all the seeds typical of Passiflora. So it's not a Cucurbitaceae, it's a Passiflora. C'est assez étonnant quand même. Green like this, it becomes bright red. Not so common to have a big fruit like this, which seems to be ripe, but actually not.
but it's wonderful.
It's incredible, these bright bracts, white-pink bracts. It's a member of Euphorbiaceae. It doesn't look at all like Euphorbiaceae, but it's a member of this family. It's a climber, of course, which is very, very beautiful. We see all the different flowers protected by the bracts. Attends, mais c'est somptueux ça.
Oh là là, c'est amazing.
Je comprenais pas ce que c'était.
Ah oui, non, mais c'est...
Now, I remember the name. It's a Donnell-smithii. The genus is Donnell-smithii, member of Euphorbiaceae. Very beautiful. Alors ici c'est pas Tetracera, il y a Dolichocarpus, among the climbing Delaeniaceae in tropical America. So maybe it's a Dolichocarpus.
This was burned like maybe like half a year ago.
Half a year.
Yeah.
This is a small palm, I think it's probably Acoelorrhaphe wrightii, probably. And we see that the stipes are totally black due to the fires, because there are recurrent fires often managed by people taking care of the forest, and it is perfectly resisting to the fire due to the leaf bases. The other trees have a very, very thick bark. When I look at the leaves, it looks like an oak, so perfectly resistant to fire. And all the small members of labiae, mostly like salvia, etc., of course, they can disappear and germinate again very quickly. So all these are probably only few months or 1 year old. Actually, this aquatic plant, totally submerged, is a member of the Podostemmonaceae. It's a species with characteristic dissected leaves fixed by the base to the rocks. It's usually annual plants, flowering when water is very low and dying. Usually annual plant growing very quickly. The seeds are tiny and very sticky as soon as there is one drop of water, so they are growing quickly fixed to the rock, and they are flowering when the water is very low. In the heart of the dry season they will flower in April, and after producing the seeds probably in up to May, and after when water is flowing again, new plants are germinating. We see it everywhere here. No, so it's in Bigno, so no white latex. So probably Bignonia family, and probably after it becomes maybe a big liana like this. So here in the Caracol we have the place, very important place, a reservoir, because all the life of the city during more than 1,000 years needed, of course, to have water. So this reservoir was very important. Now, of course, it's not used, but I'm very surprised because it's obviously, when I see the leaves, obviously a member of Malvaceae and probably the genus Hibiscus. I don't see the flowers, but it's supposed to be quite small pink flowers. It is spiny all along the stem. It never reaches more than about 2 meters tall, and I'm surprised because I don't know at all this aquatic hibiscus. Of course, a huge pistia growing everywhere, some Aechmea crassipes also, and also some lemna on the border, but what is a little bit surprising is this hibiscus. At this forest edge, we see many big-leaved plants, and especially this one, which is obviously a member of Acanthaceae, not yet flowering, but we see the terminal spike is in preparation. It has really huge leaves. Here I see the hanging stem of the philodendron. It is the quite common philodendron ederaceum, or also synonym Philodendron scandens, which is climbing, and then it has hanging stems like this, and usually inflorescence appear on the hanging stems. Many palms, of course, for instance the spiny one with fruits, which is probably Astrocarium mexicanum. Astrocarium is a genus of spiny palms, and many other species of palms. We see the maybe Criosophila here. It's very different from the pine forest, probably simply due to the fact that here the substrate is limestone. It's why Maya cities are built around here, because limestone, so important for them, is present everywhere. Another species of Pitcairnia. Leaves look very similar to many other ones, but actually we can see the inflorescence, which appears on an almost leafless stem close to the leaves, the rosette of leaves. Here we see one of these climbing Aracea, and when I look at the shape of the leaf, looking a little bit like a Passiflora, but actually it's a genus Rhodospata. So this genus is most commonly diversified in Amazonia Sensulato, but here I'm surprised because I did see already at least 2 different species here in the humid place. So we see this Rhodospata, we see also a Philodendron Pteromiscum subgenus here, Philodendron which doesn't look too much like a philodendron. We see also a Philodendron scandens, a Psychotria pupigii or pepigiana. It's very strange because this species is quite common all over tropical America, because here it's the limit of the rainforest, because we are in a Belize at about 18 degrees of latitude, so it's at the limit, almost the limit of the tropical rainforest. And we can see it in Peru, in French Guiana, in Colombia, almost everywhere in Amazonia and peri-Amazonia, and still thriving here at the limit of the forest. An Aechmea fallen on the soil, but it has very, very sharp spines on each margin of the leaf. This plant, looking like ginger, Zingiberacea, actually is not at all a member of Zingiberacea. It is a Heliconia, because there are some Heliconia species which have stem, pseudostem, developing like this with the inflorescence at the top, but unfortunately it's totally decayed. So it is a group of Heliconia hirsuta, but it's not hirsuta because the shape of the leaf is very different. I know hirsuta in Amazonia Sensulato, but this is the same group but another species with very beautiful sheathing leaf base around the pseudostem. Very elegant, and it's quite small also. So bright green, verrucose structure, seems actually to be a pod, a fruit but difficult to open. But it seems it was interesting for monkeys or other animals. And yes, we can see developing seeds inside. So strange structure. Here along this fast-flowing river in the broadleaf forest, so it's not a pine forest. Pine forest is just 500 meters from here, but here it's a forest with many leguminoses and many Attalea palms. And in this river we see this Rubiaceae, rheophytic species of Rubiaceae, but it's quite strange because it's not at all. The stems are not bending in the direction of the strong currents going flash floods, but it is totally erect, and it's a very dense population. There is also a very small biophyton, totally fixed to the rocks. So it's a very rich, both in species and number of individual plants. it's quite surprising to see a grass with brown leaves. It's not at all common in grasses. It is totally brown, undulating leaves. Now maybe it's red. Oh yes, it's totally purple on the underside of the leaves. So probably there is in the same area the green form, but this one is interesting. I'm very surprised because I think I did never see a so huge marantacea. Probably it's a calathea, but it's you know, see the blade more than 1 meter long. The total height is about 3 or 3.5 meters. Here we see a huge terrestrial Bromeliaceae. I say terrestrial because obviously it's not just falling from the tree. And when we see the size of the leaves, usually they are much smaller as epiphytic species. I see there are teeth, spiny teeth along the blade, so it's probably at least Aechmea alliance. It's collecting water at the base of the leaves, but what is surprising is the size of this plant. And usually this group of Aechmea are saxicolous or epiphytic, very not commonly terrestrial like this one. These huge leaves actually are produced by the cocoloba. I see it's a cocoloba due to the ochrea, the sheathing base of the leaf embracing the apex and the stem. It's very rigid, just in the same way as many cocoloba species. And here, for instance, we can see clearly the ochrea around the stem, and here also. I'm surprised about this palm because when we see the totally corky bark, we can understand that it very easily resists to fire. And it's a very tiny species. It's surprising to see so small leaves at the top of the stipe. And also we see the bases of the leaves, the sheathing bases, which have many interlacing fibers at the base, and then the cork protecting from the fire. This is a star-shaped structure opening exactly like a flower. Actually, the opening carpels have a fruit, and it's probably a clusia. We can see this one not yet fully open, and with the seeds surrounded by a bright orange substance. Probably the birds love it.
Très étrange matière.
Oui.
Et ça sort d'un espèce de bulbe.
Non, c'est-à-dire ça s'ouvre.
Mais est-ce que tu tiens dans les
Ah
doigts,
oui,
là,
non, c'est un autre fruit qui n'est pas encore ouvert.
Ah d'accord, ok. Oui, bien sûr.
Oui, mais j'en viens à me demander comme si c'est le même.
Oui.
Oui, que c'est le même groupe évidemment, mais. Ouh là 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 là, parce que d'habitude c'est à peine ramifié, enfin c'est pas comme ça, hein, le Papygiana. Actually, I think that this Psychotria, you think it was Papygiana, but actually it's very branched and it has quite small bracts, many inflorescences, so I think it's related, but probably another species than the common one in all Amazonia. Here it's incredible because it's branched in a pseudo-dichotomous way because the branches are very equal. And sometimes also we see that the leaves just below the inflorescence also can become red. This tree, which looks like somewhat like a tree fern, actually is a member of the Annonaceae, and each green element, little green element about 3 or 4 centimeters long, is a leaf and not at all a leaflet, and it's the family Annonaceae. I take a little branch. You can see the fruits. All these separate elements are not separate fruits, it's mericarps, and this was a flower. We see the traces of the 3 sepals at the base, so it is obviously a member of Annonaceae, but usually Annonaceae are small forest understory trees, so it's always surprising to see these xylopia, which are in totally open environments.
La segura, a mulher em
Ouais, toute petite fougère.
Non, c'est la ginelle.
C'est la ginelle?
Ouais.
Oh là là,
C'est la ginelle.
incroyable.
Étonnante. Hein. Oh, when I look more closely at the flowers, it's Polygalaceae. There are some climbing Polygalaceae, not only genus Polygala, but among the climbing genera, I think Secorinaga. It's a name coming to my mind because I see the two wings on each side of the flower, typical of Polygalaceae. This tree, quite common in this area, is actually Cletra mexicana. And the Cletra are trees which are mostly characteristic of mountainous areas, but here we are only at 400 meters above sea level, but in this pine forest it's a little bit the same as if we were in mountain, and we see also that the bark is very corky. So it's also probably very well resistant to fires. But small white flowers, like a little bit like lily of the valley, are characteristic of this Cletra. Actually, this plant is not simply a shrub, it's more or less climbing, and all of these bottle brush inflorescence are typical of most of the Combretum species, especially the climbing Combretum species. And we see the incredibly bright greenish yellow stamens emerging from the inflorescence. So everything is plagiotropic, horizontally growing. So all these flowers are totally exposed to the birds, and probably the colibri are loving the nectar which is inside each flower, because of course each of these structure is a single flower, so there are many successive flowers along this inflorescence axis. Androlepis with very long hanging fronds. We see the young fronds with early development of hydatodes, which are just a little bit white points on the young lateral pinnae of the frond. Oh yes, in some older fronds we see clearly the white spots of the hydatodes. Totally white and probably excreting different minerals, calcium of course, but here on the palm trunk I think it has not too much calcium to exudate.
Superbe zamia, en même temps qu'une orchidée. Zamia immense, mais ça ressemble comme deux gouttes d'eau à un palmier comme ça.
Et tu vois, ils ont des petits trous comme des monsteras.
Ah oui, des petits trous comme des monsteras.
Caractéristique des Ranartia. These small palms Ranartia are very characteristic with these holes at the base of the leaflet in the almost the same way as monstera. Here in this big patch of the rainforest in the botanical garden of Belize, not far from the border of Guatemala, here I see there are 3 or 4 species of Zamia among the cycads, and this one is a huge individual, difficult to know if it has been planted or not, but obviously it is native of this area. It has a small trunk. It's probably a female individual because I see some babies just around me, and it has the very characteristic shape of the leaflets, which are very shiny. Notice in this species, totally regular, but we see the insertion of the leaflets, which is not at all same as in palms. We see the curvature, which is very different, and also the last 2 leaflets are usually different. I was much intrigued by this plant that we see everywhere, especially since we were in Tikal, so in lowlands, climbing. I was always wondering if it was a Solanaceae or a Convolvulacea, but now, no doubt, it's a Convolvulacea.
Du darfst mir nie mehr rote Rosen schenken, denn das erinnert mich an unser Glück. Ich muss an 1000 selige Stunden denken und die Vergangenheit kommt dann zurück. Doch ich will nichts mehr sehen, was von damals spricht. Schenk mir Flieder und Veilchen oder auch vergissmein nicht. Schenk mir Kakteen oder Orchideen. Nur rote Rosen schenk mir bitte nicht. Du, aber ich liebe rote Rosen.